Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. And so it begins. So, to continue. You're listening to a sci-fi, you're listening to a sci-fi writer who in 2024, or actually before, like from 2023, actually, yeah, 2024, I became Muslim, okay? And I became Muslim not with anybody telling me anything, not because I was raised in Iran for some time, like in my youth, and then came to Canada. I had an experience, a moment where I felt imprisoned in a sort of spiritual self-worship. People might be like, what is this sound in the background? Like I'm outside of a Tim Hortons in front of a Home Depot. So this is what 2024 sounds like in this moment. All right, let's go with this. So the title of this episode, it's pretty much, I'm in some sense speaking about two approaches to reality. But in some sense, first, I want to say something personal, that today was the day, because, I don't know, maybe I have kids in the future that might hear it, right? It's like today is the day where it was my grandfather's, from the mother's side, like it was his, he had passed away and it was his burial. And we were witnessing him being lowered down into the earth. So aside from, an intense emotional day, but an overall good day. That means beyond the sadness, there was it felt like a blessed day. And anyways, this sentence arose to me: laugh because life is too short to cry. Is that what I wrote? Yeah, laugh because I'd written it different ways, but I sculpted it finally as this. And also something I gotta tell the viewers, I'm a visual thinker. What does that mean? That means that when I speak, I'm experiencing a film. I'm seeing. I have found I think where all human beings are capable of this. But personally, I'm someone who words were too slow and what was faster than words? Is images. Like, we remember movie scenes way better than like paragraphs in a book. Also, thinking cinematically, let's say, it's way more faster, because there's much more content to it. Pretty much what you're looking at in regards to what we call the human species, and of course, I'm one embodied human being, member of the human species out of 8 billion. It's getting close to 8 billion of us here. That's a very interesting moment in human history. When you look at the human being, there's levels to it. In this lecture, I'll be explaining level 3, but level 1 and 2 I've explained in other lectures. Now, all that I have felt is of value to share and kind of give a feedback report to my humanity. All right. This song seems interesting. So, in the presence of God. So, I'm a human being, and guys, I'm gonna get serious because it's getting interesting, and this song has a momentum to it. So, the story begins with, what are human beings doing? Where are they? What are they? And in what mode should they perceive? I have tried to simplify this because in some sense I ask myself the question, would I rather want to be the most advanced being in a world of, let's say, inferior beings, or would I like to be in the world of 8 billion advanced beings, right? So I thought about that idea deeply. And to me, suddenly the concept advancement, God, there's a name to God in Islam, and it's the greatest, right? It's a symbol. It's a sign. How would I say it? It's aside from that being what language is. Okay. So guys, pretty much in this episode, aside from me explaining the imagery behind the sentences, right? And how level 3 is noticing the higher power, level 3 of Earth. So I guess this is like a Muslim sci-fi writer's contribution to humanity. Let's see where it goes. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the situation. You're not who you think you are. And the sentence "get real" has a deeper meaning than what culture can imply. In 2024, human beings have noticed that they are the most advanced life forms on Earth. And by being the most advanced life forms on Earth, there's a responsibility we carry. Why? Because we can notice what the others cannot. Okay? Now, what's interesting is that when it's like being born on the Earth, I like entered this Earth in 1991, right? I entered the outer Earth in 1991. And after 32 laps around the sun, I have in some sense contemplated what's actually going on, you know, and there's been significant moments where I've realized, okay, every human being has a different DNA. That kind of makes every human being like a unique telescope, okay? So it makes them a unique angle on life, right? So I was like, okay, so I got to start from my eyes and wonder about where all eyes are going, right? And eventually I realized there's sectors of contemplation. And first we start with time. Let me see if I can find a better song, guys. Hold on. All right. So we look at time, all right? So what does that mean? So, or let me paint the picture this way. I'm trying to explain to you how, as a human being, I have managed to look at what's going on here, okay? And I've been like, okay, we can at least attempt to universalize it. And just playfully, I'm like, hey, folks, there's 3 levels, okay? These levels are implying, in some sense, how the human attention is being, in some sense, regulated, but it's being like, what's the term? How it's being administered. There we go. Okay, so there's something going on this planet, and there's this, you know, famous view in ancient times where the people would just go and be like, yo man, be like an eagle, and the person would be like, what do you mean be like an eagle? And the person would say, an eagle can in some sense stand on a branch forever, or it can fly in the forest and see all the branches, all the fathomable perceptions. So we start off from actually looking at what's going on, and the cool thing is we're not alone. Not just you have your own self, not just the species has everybody else, right? We're all here together. It's like the same, we're all in the same exam hall of manifesting change. So for the time it comes to, think of it this way, contextually, we start from level 1. Level 1 is the body, to simplify it for you. So right now, just like you, I'm being a body here, correct? So when we look at the body, what are we seeing? Right? We're seeing, in some sense, an elemental 3D simulation. Okay, what does that mean? That means we think we have a body. I'll get to what thought is. That's level 2, right? But level 1, so think of it this way. Okay, I gotta explain the context. I'm pretty much looking at life like as a human being. I'm looking at life and I'm being like, okay, let's go with this. Let's like observe this view. It's important that what if life, first of all, is a system? Like, can we all agree life is a system? Yay! Everybody agreed life is a system. Then we're like, okay, or let me actually start it here. We wonder what everybody can agree on. People are like, Mr. Within, that's impossible. You know? I'll tell you how it's possible. There is existence. This existence is moving in organized patterns that we are discovering, and science is getting fascinated by, and religion is strengthening its faith by realizing what's truly moving everything. you know So we look at reality and we're like, okay, so there's a self existing. So there's a physical self in a physical world. All right. So there is existence in a sort of format, but it's also existing in an existence of a greater format. Okay, so when you so that the greatness of why existence is here is really accessing level 3. Now I'm playfully saying levels. Are people like, Mr. Within, I can't unlock these levels? I'll be like, relax, man. It's a playful way I'm saying it. I'm saying it. You got to look at it yourself. Deep down, you are how much you honor your heart is the true piloting of your soul, really. So what I'm saying is, we look at body, this is like the physical, this is existence, this is physicality, this is how there's an objective dimension to being a human being on earth. Now we go to level 2. Okay, I'm still speaking about the context. I'm going to get back to time after. What I was saying about time. Level 2 is how the human being is experiencing a subjective dimension to life. Okay, that means it's not just objects moving. There's people being like, yo man, I can't believe in an invisible system administrator to all visible considerable manifestation. Right? And then the person's like, wait a minute though. If I ask you, who are you? What are you going to say? And you're going to like tell me a story of a character you've been this whole life in what sort of world you've been, right? So that character, your ego, who you think you are right now, that you think is a thought, that's actually, how do I tell you? It's like a simulation inside a simulation. When you study subjective reality, you're in some sense studying how this original attention is in some sense navigating through a simulated world. Okay? So when we go to level 2 is what? The mind. People are going to be like, Mr. Within, are you out of your mind? I'll be like, no, it's better than being stuck in my mind. What does that mean? That means every human being you see right now, they're observing the same objects as you if they were beside you, right? But what the object means, what everything means, when they open their eyes in the morning, what sort of value proposition have they awakened from their dreams to? You see, when you log into this world, I'm pretty much trying to tell you, okay, I believe in God, but I'm a Muslim. But I care for God's creation, which is all the secular people. And I'm like, okay, the secular people are subconsciously acknowledging the same essential geometrical algorithm, because the whole point of the system is that it's been coded. So when I speak to secular people, I'm telling you, yo, okay, relax. First of all, what if you were to translate, in some sense, a sort of extracted view from what religion is pointing to? It is, in some sense, saying, hey, have you ever wondered what is there more than the box that is the accepted world? Like, the accepted world is, in some sense, something that is, how can I tell you? It's like a sort of self-imprisonment. So for me, I was very spiritual up to 2023, but then I realized this spirituality was like putting the whole burden of everything and what would happen on just one individual character in a story carried self. Like, if I truly ask you, who are you, right? It depends on your awareness to what sort of meaning you have piloted through so far. You see, it's like there's culture, in some sense, kind of being like a artificial, kind of like, how can I tell you? I'm pretty much saying we're simulated beings in a simulated world, and our task and our test is we're being tested on if we notice the original higher power. So most human beings on Earth, I don't know why I keep saying 80% and 20%. I think 80% of human beings on Earth only experience up to level 1 and 2. What does that mean? That means they become an object and they are a subject, and this character in a story, singular subject that they are, is in some sense just moving everything. That means they are free will worshippers. But when you look at what free will is, when you just even look at what the human activity is, it is in some sense the presence of the whole activity of everything that is happening. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's as if our mind is moving faster than our body, so we can give meaning to the change, right? But everything is really changing, right? So from one level, just like in science, we have, for example, we have like particle wave theory. In philosophy, we have eternal dash changeless theory, right? What I'm trying to tell you is that there's a contrast, because really 80% of human beings, if you ask them what sort of world have you lived in, they'd be like, it was good and it was bad. So what does that mean? Duality right off the bat. But it's not a home run. The home run is realizing that, like, this is when you tap into level 3. I'll still speak more about level 2. But what I might say next might fascinate you, actually. So, let's start off from this question of what is the best way to live as a human being on Earth. Okay. So, what's the best way to live on this earth? It's to notice what sort of cyclical behavior is being displayed in each level. What does that mean? That means your body is cyclically surviving. You gotta eat food, drink water, sleep. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? So you're like a cyclical biological organism surviving, and how you're being, and as you become conscious of how the world is cyclically happening, Like, it's like first you understand the context, and it becomes very easy to position the concept anywhere in that context. So really what understanding is understanding why the geometry of the idea is even there. Why are we as human beings on earth being, wait a minute, are we just advanced apes that in some sense saw the chaos, the unknown meaninglessness of the world was too much for them, and our ancestors were like, whoa man, I'm just going to tell myself a story, I'm a human being from now on, and I'm cool, and I'm going to go and conquer the world, da 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 da. But in the efforts of humanity in history, what we have noticed, really, if we truly, some people are like, yo man, I honor my ancestors. Do you really? Because their vision was way further than ours, because their vision was open to the realization that they were not the most intelligent beings. We have been trapping ourselves by considering, by absolute fixation, an absolute fixation on, yo, I'm just human, yo, yo, yo. What does it even mean to be human? It's a changing world. It's storytelling in a changing world. Do you understand? That's level 1 and 2, and people just live their lives through that, right? But what really I find that level 3 is, level 3 is when you notice the majesty that is beyond the door of the unknown, that only your sincerest repentance can take you there. What I'm trying to tell you is that how I, as a human being, how I'm talking about the higher power, if they're like, who are you that you're saying this? I'm saying level 3 is the soul. The soul is the realization that it's not free will simulating reality. There is in some sense a higher power, forever to humanity unknown, similar to if someone wrote a fiction novel, the character in that novel could never know the author, but if the novel was still being written, it could in some sense have the privilege of being within the field of decree of the one and only original system administrator and God, singular point of beyond worldly form limitation. That means it's like, as a religious person, it's like, yo, the narrative is in some sense an uncaused original power caused a simulated causality, and within that simulated causality there were simulated effects, and we, when we open our eyes in this body, are actually a simulated effect. And we're like, yo man, we're so far from the truth, so far from the God and all of this, and man is in some sense losing the battle against his desires, denying him his greater self. Where I'm going with this is simply this, and I don't really know when I will give a talk next, but level 3 is the soul, and this realization that everything you thought was cause and effect, everything that you thought was karma, everything that you thought was like, luck and somebody being lucky and unlucky, all of or hard work means success. All of that shifts when you realize there is an authority, an original power authority to this realm. What does that mean? It's a very strange, not strange, but it's a very fascinating context. It's as if before humanity had even thoughts of creating super intelligent computers or even trying to fathom extraterrestrial life forms, like advanced enlightened extraterrestrial life forms, let's say from the Andromeda galaxy. It's as if we reach a point where we realize it's just objects and subjects changing, and if the subject changes faster than the object, the subjective perception, the object would not fear where it's going because understanding is leading it. So for me, as a Muslim and as someone, it's as if Islam was the only. Honestly, it's pretty much saying like don't focus on anything. Don't even. I'm saying this very respectfully. Don't even worship the prophets, peace be upon them. Right, but only ask the Almighty, the original power, right, of the original world. Okay, only ask the higher power of the original world, right? So all the prophets were like pointing to like, yo, go beyond the world of forms, because in the world of forms reality loops. In the world of forms there's infinity, and in infinity there's simulations of change, but in eternity there is it's in some sense witnesses returning to a singularity, but it's not something that man can ever know, because the beauty, at least I found in Islam, was like, yo, you think you're spiritual, bro? No, the soul is the secret of God. That means this world is strangely designed in a way where we can't discover its edge and index the whole cosmos to come up with accurate calculations, right? And at the same time, when we go like, yo, does this mean life means about like enlightenment and getting to know who you are and all that? And when you go down that rabbit hole, pretty much what happens and what the New Age community and spiritualism has done, in some sense, modern spiritualism, is that in some sense it has allowed the ego to enter divinity. And this is an error. Like, I think I might be the first human being to say, like, this is a spiritual error. What do I mean? That means if you nullify yourself and you're like, yo, man, I don't have an ego. I'm just the whole moment of being. And I was like this in 2023, guys. Something happened. It changed suddenly for me. Let me tell you, when you notice like every day you log into life, it's just like objective simulations of self and the probabilities of what happens, right? And just objective positions and management, right? It's just like after some point of be constantly doing this, you're like, what is this? Every day I'm waking up trying to feel like a new happy self. What is this? It feels simulated, right? So the point of it is not to be happy, I think. I think the point of life is to be true, to wonder about why it's happening, why it's all here, right? But in the question of it, a scenario is the response. Because ultimately the human being is in some sort of position, manifest existential position. So I'm saying, okay, think of existence as an existential system. Think of God as a system administrator that has complete authority over this existential system and has even appointed moderators, and we're in the position of members, right? So it's as if suddenly realizing you thought you were an advanced organism that had free will to, in some sense, give whatever meaning. But when you get to realize that's just like a ability that can just happen anytime. The joy of life is to look at everything around you and be like, what fascinates me? And for me, because of the objective and subjective dimensions I've observed, it's not that I want to go like, yo, man, I want to transcend to another dimension. I don't believe in that anymore. To me, the presence of the original higher power was so mighty, where it was as if I was a peasant, a peasant covered in sin, right, in the presence of like the mightiest power that it's once my soul noticed its might. It's just like tears, just kind of like I couldn't lie to myself because I was in the presence of the higher power. But for me, the higher power only means that we're in a simulation, and that's just the glow of the, not the glow but the light, let's say the glow of the original world, or as in the Holy Quran it's mentioned in Surah An-Nur, God is the light upon light, upon lights. Do you know what that means? That means the light of this world is still a shadow to the original world, but it doesn't mean it's like a shadow like this. It means, like, let's say horizontally, like there's darkness and light, but then we think about what does it mean for there to be a light upon light, and then it's like it's suddenly from the horizontal dimension we suddenly go a vertical dimension, right? And it's in some sense the light of the original, it's the glow of the, it's the light of the original power, the original world. And members are inside a simulation, moderators have authority over the simulation, but they're still simulated. And for a decade in my so-called spiritualism, I was working with these moderators. Do you understand? I wasn't calling the one and only. I hadn't realized. But deep down in my heart, I in any moment of emergency, it would always be that. Right? Because that's what's fascinating. In an episode, I called it higher intelligent. I didn't call it higher. I said intelligent interaction levels. That means what's more fascinating than being a subjective character in an objective world, where you're simulating also your own subjective meaning of that world, is to realize, wait a minute, and this is how you tap into level 3, where you realize, no way, if I was teleported in someone's, like, let's say in some place, and there was an owner to that place, and the owner was right there, but I acted like didn't see the owner, right? That's my own ignorance. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the original power is watching us. We are in contact in the similar, it's like I don't want to say we're all contacting God, but God is contacting all. Because it's God's decree. It's will. It's so fascinating because it's like all the academics in the world were like, yo, this podcaster just said something deep. That knowledge has limits. And language can just only go so far. And maybe the more advanced as humanity marches into the future, the more advanced humanity would be a sort of humanity where it is not making decisions out of fear. And it is, you may think I'm going to say it's going to be making decisions out of love, but no. It's noticing that if you think your free will is the truth, you're limited to your own world. It's a sort of self-worship. If you think the ideas of others is truth, okay? If you worship others, which are worldly forms, any form in the world, that's still, in some sense, it's still simulated. If you worship the world, even not people, right, or yourself, like, it would still be simulated. So I'm saying, noticing that higher power, I find, is the test. And from a theological standpoint, Adam and Eve had just forgotten where they were, and where they were, and in what presence they were, in what sort of presence they were. They let the whispers of ignorance to, in some sense, not be capable to control one's attention. You see, the issue is it's not an issue. Theologically, man is God's greatest creation. We are like this. We are the Creator's greatest creation. And so theologically, all the angels and all the worlds were in some sense commanded to bow to what God had created, the most advanced masterpiece of God. But the masterpiece, in some sense, made an error by trusting what was in the world, but not that which had created the world. So when you tap into level 3, you're not just an evolutionary organism storytelling your way, your lifetime. What you really are is a soul, which means an original ability to return to the original world. That means if they gave you the option of simulated power or original power, which one would you choose? I'm telling you, simulated power already has mods. So Islam is saying, go directly to the system admin. Go directly to the system admin. Guys, I gotta turn my phone to see what's being written here. Hang on. Welcome, guys. Somebody says joy is not seek beyond the moment. There's only one light. No. I think the true joy is realizing you're not in charge of contextualizing it. You can't. That means if you think of just yourself, I don't know how to say this, but level 3 is when 8 billion souls realize they are in a simulated testing zone, and what they're being tested on is that our past could not had forgotten the original. So it's pretty much a very stranger context. Level 3, I could understand why 20% of people just get up to level can get up to level 3, because they're being fascinated by what is moving and how everything is even here, guys. Do you understand what I'm telling you? You might be like, yo, this is some deep philosophy. I'll be like, sure, but what it really is, it's at the same time subjectively playful, but objectively serious situation where 8 billion human beings, right, are like candles in a dark cosmos, and then realizing they haven't been lit by themselves. What that means is the world has an intelligence. So it's another way I can give you say this is like, imagine that there's 8 billion method actors on the planet, and the world is a giant film set, and the camera crew and everything, and it's been, the moment you've become conscious, it's been like action. And these 8 billion method actors, they started off from being the method of their character, right? And so they were so in their character's world that at some point on the film set, 8 billion actors were like, wait a minute, I'm not this character I'm playing, I'm actually this. And then they all look around and they notice, oh my God, I'm on a film set. And then they suddenly try to go outside of the film set, and then in some sense there's suddenly like, there's like film crew, right, in some sense telling the actors, yo, just play your part in this world. See, guys, being convinced by a subjective view means you're still in level 2. Okay, So so whoever's writing in the chat section, I'm telling you, you're still in self worship, because self worship is nullifying who you thought you were, and when you make nothing, when you make everything and nothing equal to each other, you're making this the created and the creator equal to each other, and again the spiritual error, right? So level 3 is a very different life. Level 3 is you're starting off with complete simplicity throughout the day. And when when life is simpler, sincerity is possible. Honestly, it's like easy, right? So when you simplify reality, I had this view like, no, 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 I gotta be this advanced, like so many dimensions perceiving kind of entity in this world. And then I realized, what is this? This is fear. See, guys, what I'm trying to tell you is that any debate up to level 2 is limited by language, right? So the point of level 3 is realizing you're not the main focus of this life. It's like, what are you doing, like worshiping yourself, thinking like you know? The point of level 3 is realizing there's a system administration, there's a divine management going on. We find ourselves not in a natural surveillance state where birds and nature witness us, watch us, but we're also in a divine surveillance state. We're also in a subjective surveillance state, but the subjective surveillance state it's not really a surveillance state, because it's still everybody's in their private servers, right? Because who we really are is where our attention goes next on some level. And now I can go back to the idea of time, meaning that the factors of human consideration in regards to through the lens of time is past, present, future. Let's just play with that trio. The past is in a subjective domain level 2. The present is alive, and the present in some sense is witnessing the living decree in motion of the one and only. And the future is how great everything was before we went to the next place or non-place, to the next passage, to the next place, really. Anyways, guys, this is just like one human being's opinion, so perceive as you may. We're each occupying a certain moment in the space-time continuum. Everything, like, it's human beings up to level 2. They're in, what are they? They're in subjective worship. They think they're the center of the world. This is why I'm saying, like, spirituality is self-worship. Religion is realizing, wait a minute, if you were to truly, as an organism, as a being, wonder about, okay, what if there was a higher power here? How would you approach it? Would you approach it with your own simulation? You're like running up to potential truth as if being like, no, this is my truth. It's like this. No, no, no. It's the consideration. Anyways, guys, I mean, maybe this is not the best time for me to be giving this lecture because there was like a grieving event that's happening. But anyways, in Islam, they say you should only fear God. You understand? The whole point of it is that you're either choosing the simulation, which means you're being either drawn to the worldly, or in some sense, that means the lower self is like the desires trying to simulate their own free will with victory. But the other path is like the higher self, which is not simulating the mind. It is standing in the presence of higher power with faith, right? Do you understand? Guys, I'm just saying that on language. Anytime we use words, anybody can say, yo, man, you're using words. Of course, that's what language is. That's why we have ears and mouths, right? To communicate, right? Because everybody behind their eyes, they're in their own private subjective server, right? Like, I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am, right? So any sort of judgment in this zone is in some sense like its own self-worship, right? But it's not about pointing fingers. It's about realizing that what do we do with this situation of 8 billion human organisms in this world? The world is changing, or the population is increasing, technology is leveling up, right? And human beings are wondering about, okay, what would be the next chapter to the subjective shape of like to the subjective main story of humanity, like what it all means, right? In my science fiction, the way I envisioned it, what happens, I called it the nation of humanity. Do you know what that means? That means I suddenly envisioned that every nation on the planet is like untouched, but you put the word sub dash, like sub-nations. And guys, someone in the chat section says you're on level 3 selfish. And guys, I'm just saying, I told you I'm playfully telling you these levels, right? So if you suddenly tune into the talk not realizing what I've said before, like, I'd appreciate the patience. Anyways, guys, I'm not here trying to have an absolutist battle with the chat section, but I'm just trying to share my view. Right? It's my feedback, right? Anyways, where am I going with this? And why did I even name the main title of the lecture Laugh Because Life is Too Short to Cry? Because something further I could have said about level 1 and 2 is that level 1 is like, what do we do with the body? Level 2 is, what do we do with our mind? Level 3 is, if there's something more than our mind, what is it? I think this is a nice way of saying it. So level 1, when it comes to the body, is the mission. Like, if you saw reality again as an existential system, but this system had members in it, the members experienced this system as players in a video game. And so these are levels to a, let's say, video game, right? This whole world is like an elemental 3D video game instead of being a 2D screen pixelated video game. All right. The mission of the body in level 1 is survival. Level 2, the mind. It is service. That's the purpose. That's how you complete level 2. Okay. There was this polymath who had said, this Indian polymath, he had said that I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy. What he was trying to convey was that at first life was a self-obsession of survival. It was a sort of battle of armoring ourselves in our own subjective free will oriented storylines. Now, as a human being in this conscious time, I'm communicating to all of us and I'm being like, okay, when will the advanced initiatives of humanity happen? It is way more bigger than our opinions and our singular judgments, all right? You know, it's like, wake up, human species. It's way bigger than your thoughts can convince you of, right? So we gotta tread these waters carefully, but at the same time realize it's like from a simulated state, we're trying to get the species to go to an original state, but it doesn't really go to the original state when it, like level 3 is, okay, let me complete level 2. So level 2 is service. And why do I say that? Because your mind, this idea of yourself that you have, this invisible idea of yourself that you, let's say, consider, and the worship guys can be synonymous with the word attention, just being there. The mind, every night we go to sleep, has no fear of vanishing, and the person's like, I need some good night rest. Also, the idea of you is an invisible idea that you're considering to be true, right? So similarly, it's strange, it's like the atheist came to the theist and said, yo, how can you worship an invisible God? And then in some sense, the theist looked back at the atheist and said, how can you think you're an invisible idea? How can you think you're an ego, your name? You're a character in a subjective story of memory sequences. So the mind doesn't have a fear of death because the mind is changing faster than the body and can reach high speed. Or let's say the word divine speed. I think that's an interesting wording of it. So the mind is in some sense startled by the situation of like, okay, I'm like the light of a candle flame. The body is the body of the candle, which is in some sense melting, right? And so what happens to this light? So the mind, the body is trying to deal with a finite situation. The mind, level 2, is how the mind is dealing with an infinity, with an infinite situation. What does that mean? The mind doesn't know, out of all the infinite ways there are to look at reality or consider the original power, which way to look at it. So that's in some sense reaching a limitation zone of your own mind. So when you reach that limitation zone, well, how else can you function if you don't choose to wonder what else there is, right? Once you reach that limitation zone, you'd be like, no, all right, man, it's easier to just be a simulated character in a simulated world. Of course it's easy. It's designed to be that way. The simulation loves itself. It's forgotten that there's higher love, higher power, higher levels to reality. So for level 1, we're building a physical advanced civilization. For level 2, in earlier talks in 2023, I would say we need advanced communicators and advanced communication. The advancement of communication is the next great chapter of human, let's say, evolution, and a human objective evolution and subjective revolution. So what I'm trying to say is that if everybody's like, no, we got to conceptually change things, I'm like, no, guys, contextually observe it universally. You'd be fascinated that the ego will see all the whole forest when it's not just on the branch, on one branch. So I'm saying religion is like a message, and this message is communicating that there is something beyond all this. So man, before again contacting, I repeated this, but super intelligence and extraterrestrials, we are originally contacting a higher power. So the fascination of a fiction character in a fiction novel to wonder about why the author authored it, and realizing the limitation of that fictional world, and rather than being content fighting in the simulation. The notion is that you acknowledge it, but what you really are, you require simplicity and sincerity. So the mind doesn't know what to do with infinity, just like the body doesn't know what to do with the finite. Short term is like health, survival, and having a minimalistic approach, not be getting tempted by cultural desires. So the mind doesn't know what to do with infinity, it's reached its limitation. The body doesn't know what to do with the finite infinity, it's reached its limitation. So I personally found myself from 2023 to 2024, there was a moment where I noticed the limitations of my self-worship. Let me tell you, there's a concept in Islam called shirk, which is polytheism, which is like saying idol worship is wrong. Okay, so it hadn't occurred to me that I could be worshiping myself, and that's what spirituality subconsciously was. Because I was saying, no, I'm going to discover the truth through myself, within myself, rather than wondering what moves everything from within itself is the decree of advanced higher system admin, right, of the original power, right? So to me, suddenly I got a reality check, and I went from being an emperor in my own like simulated inner life to realizing no, there is the presence of a higher beyond both inner and outer life. So my attention, like when I pray, it's like moments as a simulated being in a simulated world where I'm like, okay, time to pay attention to the original world, the original power, the one and only God. La ilaha illallah. There's no God but God. That means there is no form that can be equivalent to the creator, because in religion the context is that the creator is uncaused. Somebody said God created himself. No, God is uncaused. God caused the concept of creation. Do you understand? It's an uncaused original world position. Okay, so the uncaused caused causality, and in that simulated causality we are being tested as an effect, and level 3 is noticing, wait a minute, in this lost sorrow of a simulated world there's something original within us returning to the original. So what that means is in this life you can't really get to know yourself, because there's a Mysterianism angle to it, where in Islam again the soul is the secret of God. So it's like you reach an unknown point and you can't go further, right? And then we can't discover the edge of the world, so there's limitations in the inner world and in the outer realm. And then the point becomes, wait a minute, what if we are in someone's world? This means like if you were a guest in someone's home, you can't act like your free will, like you can, but it has consequences, right? So you can't act like you're the homeowner of someone else's home, right? You got to notice the system admin of that system. Okay, and every person every day in their lives, you're probably an employee or an employer, and you're within a system, and you're either in the administration position or you're not, right? You're either looping or you're choosing to go beyond the fear of trying to work with novelty throughout the day. What I'm trying to tell you is laugh because life is too short to cry. Because while we are here, The wise are realizing that all the unborn future generations, the wisdom of modernity is realizing all the unborn future generations are watching it. And beyond that, the one and only is watching us. It's sweet. It's like a performance review of simulated beings, realizing they're not just simulated, but how they're not just simulated can never be known in this world, because what is in the world cannot be uncaused because it was caused. So anyways, thank you for listening. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds. We're like a member in the simulated world. There's many, but there's one original, one and only. So level 3 is realizing your simulated being, and getting close to God is like getting close to the original world, the original truth. I don't want to say truth, I want to say the original. Thank you for listening, and honestly, bless you, and I hope you also bless our civilization while you're here. The advanced civilization, of course, ultimately, God knows best, but human beings can attempt their greatest performance. It can be incredible here. We can redesign civilization in an incredible way, right? We just need to find the honor that will pave the way for the future generations. Thank you for listening, and good night. May the future of this world be blessed, because really, guys, there's a theological clue. God is all forgiving. What that means is the world can be forgiven as well. All can be forgiven. It's really level 3 is actually the entrance into a new life, where you are not acting as the upper manager of this world. You're realizing your position. Right? Anyways, thank you for listening. Good night.